not everybody has the luxury of being able to say, I can continue to work while I navigate this process, right? And I think we need to start moving past that. That doesn't mean we can't have a conversation like
Sure.
through the interview process.
Sure.
But what I would say to you is like, that is absolutely no reason to rule somebody out of the process, right?
Absolutely.
That's one that isn't talked about enough. Like we talk about a lot of the other hidden biases like frequently, but this one I don't hear it as
Yeah,
frequent.
agreed. You're the first one to say it on the podcast.
This is Looks Good on Paper, a podcast from Willow about flipping the script on traditional hiring. I'm Anita Chohan, and every episode I put big voices in hiring and work culture through 3 quick-fire questions, speed dating style, to get the habits, trends, and ideas that matter.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Looks Good on Paper podcast. My guest today, I'm so excited to have her. Jenny Do Forno has spent nearly 25 years building and scaling teams across startups, scale-ups, and venture-backed companies, including taking organizations from 0 to 1,500 plus people. Insane. She's now the Chief People Officer at TouchBistro and previously worked in venture, assessing and supporting 90 plus companies on how they hire, grow, and operate. Jenny, thank you so much for being here. I mean, you have such a wealth of experience. I am so excited that you're here to share that today. Did I miss anything in your bio? How did you get here?
I don't know. I don't know. But what I can say is I'm a builder and a dreamer. And so like the startup community and this concept of just like building, new companies, new ways of working, all of those sorts of things is just, it's in my wheelhouse of things that kind of it's the Venn diagram of where are my skills and what kind of sparks joy for me. So
Oh, beautiful. And I feel like, you can see that when someone gets to this point in their career as well, it's kind of like, yeah, that someone has done something like authentic to themselves. There's a
yeah,
passion there. And,
yeah.
just seeing also the role that you play also in the Toronto tech community and just seeing what you do there as well. Like, I think it's like obvious that you love what you do. So, the drill, 3 questions, speed dating style. We're going to jump right into the first one. So, Jenny, what is the biggest hiring mistake companies keep making, even though it's clearly not working?
That they hire people for how they perform in an interview versus the work that they can actually do and who they are as a person. So, like this concept of one size fits all, we go through this process as we hire candidates, and the candidate who in 45-minute increments in interviews is polished, concise, can speak to, some accomplishments, that is then the person that usually gets through or has the highest probability of getting through your process successfully, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
just think in what world, if we were creating this from brand new, would that
Yeah.
sort of be the lead or would be sort of our testing point, right? And so, and by the way, I think the fix is not just one thing, so obviously
Huh.
one thing is like, hey, instead of just an interview process, like let's break it down and let's work on a project together, right? Like
Yeah.
let's see how we can collaborate. Let's see how we would work together. Show me how in real time, if I just gave you a question, an issue, how you would start to think about it, how you would break it down, right? So that I
Yeah.
can test some of your knowledge, your experience, and even some of the softer skills. I think the other piece that is also tied into that is the fact that so many companies, one, don't do references and 2, don't do references well.
Yeah.
The fact that you wouldn't deeply reference this person, right? I'm talking about me going to you and saying, hey, Anita, if we're going to bring you in as our new chief marketing officer, and I can tell from your background you worked here, here, and here, I'd like to talk to your boss from this company,
Mm.
colleague. And maybe at this company, I'd like to talk to someone who reported into you, right? So I'm asking for those things. And now that becomes like a point of conversation,
Yeah. Let's dig into that.
and maybe it's easy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just like that was 10 years ago. We've drifted apart. I don't even have their contact information. Like maybe that's okay. And I
Hmm.
can ask somebody else. But maybe on the other hand, it's telling, right?
Yeah.
Or, and then if I send these references, instead of just calling them up out of the blue, setting up time and asking them random questions, what if I sent them ahead of time? Here's 3 or 4 questions I'm going to ask you about this person so that they can be thoughtful. Because how many times do we do references and people, I don't remember. I haven't thought about that in such a long time. So if I say like, what was a project that Anita and you worked on?
Hmm.
And what was the outcome? How was it like working with her? What did you notice about, some of her personal traits? Like, in terms of her diligence or how
Hmm.
she dug in or how she thought about the problem or how she collaborated cross-functionally, etc., right? To get to a much more meaningful process that drives insight.
Totally.
So I just really think we've set it up in such a way that we think interviews measure performance, past performance, or even potential future performance. And I don't
Okay.
think they do. I think they are one piece of the puzzle, but I think we need to be more thoughtful about what the entire process looks like. And so for me, two things would really help close that gap. Being much more thoughtful on those references and very specific
Mm.
about those references and making them so much more useful. And the second thing is focusing on the work and the person and how they engage with that work.
I love that. I think you're the first person in 3 seasons I've talked about the references. And this is something that's just so, it is a fuller picture that you're trying to build about this
Yeah.
person that you're potentially bringing in, right?
Yeah.
Especially for like a higher level like position as well. Like, let's actually see what they've done. And I think it is really true and telling if they're unable to bring someone to you from past roles or even speak to why, right? Like, yeah, it is a start of a conversation like, oh, I can't bring this person, or, we didn't actually end on great terms, company changed, here's the truth about it, or maybe even just sharing and level setting with you, right? In that interview.
100%. So much in that process is telling, right? 100%.
And I think like one of the things that we're seeing a lot of, and several of our guests have said this as well, and we're seeing this in the market, of course, is like an increased need for things like, show us the work, and like maybe it's a portfolio, maybe it's an opportunity for you to like just like show me, like walk me through your thinking, things like
Yeah.
that. I know right now there's a big problem around like, the lack of security or verifying or making sure that somebody like with AI tools is actually doing the things they're doing.
I think there's clever ways. So whether
Yeah.
it's like actually going out and looking for, there's tons of software that is emerging in this market. One of the great new ones that I've seen emerge is a company called Tofu, for example.
Oh, okay.
So you should check them out. But
Yeah.
I also think you can also get creative just even with the resources that you have. Like maybe you take something off Zoom and you say, "Hey, can I call you? Hey, can I, if you're local, can we go for a walk? Can you come in person?" Like there's different things. Like so if I'm having a video call with you
Hmm.
and maybe I'm suspicious or not, or maybe I just even want to just kind of build it into my process. Now, maybe I say the next time, like, I call you at the number that you
Yeah.
have listed, right? Like, if you start to cross reference a little bit, I just encourage people to get creative about it,
Yeah.
right? Like, given your own unique circumstances as an organization and what you're experiencing out in the market, like, what are the tools, what are the resources, and what are even just the low hanging fruit, hacky ways that you can kind of think about how we can get more thoughtful about this verification or process. And I have to
Absolutely.
say, I hear about it out there, but I've got to
Yeah.
say, we haven't at Touch Bistro. We have
No.
never once had it.
Really?
No,
Nothing yet. Okay. Oh, I'm very happy to hear
nothing
that.
yet. We have had people who were employed with us who had a job someplace else as well, and we figured that out.
Yeah.
But we have never, knock on wood,
Enough
had
it.
the issue where someone got through the process who wasn't really a person.
Wow. I think I hear these horror stories, so maybe we think that they're a little bit more ubiquitous than they
Yeah.
actually are at this point, but it is maybe a flag to just watch. Actually, one of the past guests, like we're going to be releasing it really shortly, is someone from Zero. And he said like his instinct went off right off the bat when he's like, he could hear clicking, typing, even though like, they're supposed to walk someone through on the screen. And he's like, oh, I know something's up. So I think like to your point as well, like you will probably know. You can cross reference. You probably figure things out along the way too and notice these things. Yeah, agreed. So, okay, moving on to question number 2. What's a hidden bias companies unknowingly have, even when they think that they're being progressive in their hiring?
Do you know what? So, um, I thought about this a tiny bit and I had an answer. In hiring and recruiting, we need to normalize work breaks. Like when people, for either caring for sick relatives or children, or even because they just need a break or, took a sabbatical over the course of a summer, to just enjoy life and travel, etc., that we need to start normalizing those things. And I see it and hear it all the time. Like when we're looking at resumes with hiring managers, and by the way, this isn't, specific to my company, this is specific to all the companies I've seen, right? It's like, well, why isn't that person working? Like, did they really have a sick relative? Why did they take the time off? is this just them covering the fact that they couldn't get hired anyplace else, etc.? People immediately jump to that
Yeah.
versus this notion of giving grace around that we are human beings first, right? And we have lives outside of work, and they're big and they're complicated, and not everybody has the luxury of being able to say, I can continue to work while I navigate this process, right? And so how do we become like it's this bias that exists, and it's pretty consistent, and I've seen it so often and so frequently. And like I said, I know that at certain points in my career, I have probably fallen in that skeptic bucket when I have seen those, and I think we need to start moving past that. That doesn't mean we can't have a conversation like
Sure.
through the interview process,
Sure.
but what I would say to you is like that is absolutely no reason to rule somebody out of the process, right?
Absolutely.
That's one that isn't talked about enough. Like we talk about a lot of the other hidden biases like frequently, but this one I don't hear it as
Yeah,
frequently.
agreed. You're the first one to say it on the podcast. I absolutely agree with that because you know what? Okay, yes. First of all, we are fully human, like we're humans, and we should be arriving at our jobs with our employers also understanding that. Actually, that's probably what makes us also the right type of hires sometimes too. Like our own, viewpoints, where we come from, the work and the life that we've had before, but it doesn't stop us from being humans once we enter that door, right? So why are we almost penalizing people through the process or creating almost that filter of skepticism, like you said, that would prohibit us from trusting them when they've written that? You, like you said, it's like someone could be sick, you have to take care of someone, you might be a caregiver, you might just also just be burnt out. This is so normal these days now,
Yeah.
right? So I appreciate that, now we have to start, being more human in our hiring process.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that when people listen to stuff like this, they're like, oh yeah, next let me check myself, right? The bias that I try to tell everyone is the fact that we have a bias. Like we don't even realize we have a bias. Like that
Yeah.
we have we're almost blind to the biases that we
Yeah.
do have. And I think this is one of them as well, like one of the biggest ones because nobody has even brought it up, right?
I just encourage us all to be a little bit more thoughtful about, being aware of
Yeah.
it and engaging with it in a meaningful way that doesn't, kind of diminish the experience
Yeah.
and the value that that brings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because who knows? Maybe they actually came back fresher and better and they're in a better place to actually perform or they learn something, differently, right?
1,000%. As someone who has taken like a mat leave, for example, before, I can say to you, my work absolutely changed for the better when I came back from those leaves. Like I was just much more focused. I was, I had a better definition of what mattered and what didn't matter in my life. And so I had a better definition of what mattered and what didn't matter at work, right? And had to and became extra efficient with my time and my focus and my energy. My compassion went up 10 notches, right? And so yeah, I think that's also
Yeah.
really important to point out is that people can come back from whatever leaves these are with a
Yeah.
new set of superpowers to kind of apply in the
Absolutely.
workplace.
Absolutely. All right. Question number 3. So if you were to suddenly remove CVs from your current hiring process, what would that look like?
So one, I would love to do that. Like I would love to do that. I think CVs are just I think they've been a shortcut for so long. And when you think about it and when you think about bias, like they're signals, right? They're signals in so many ways. Like, you see the logos of the company that people work for or with, and you
Hmm.
immediately sort of attach a value to the work that they've done. You haven't even seen the value of the work they've done. You have no insight into whether they were good on the projects, bad on the projects, what they did from the start, or anything else like that. But you can see that they worked at Google. And so then you place some sort of value on that. I think those signals become really super noisy. They don't really let us get past that first glance into like, what was it about their
Yeah.
work at that organization and their level of contribution at that organization that would make them valuable for us as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
What if we maybe index more towards some of those questions and made those a little bit more meaningful in terms of, drop the CV and instead focus on 5 big things we need this person to do for us. And if these are the 5 big behaviors that are important to us culturally and we want to ensure that there is alignment there, let's ask questions that are really about that. So like, talk to us about a project in which you did X, Y, or Z. Break it down
Mm-hmm.
for us. Explain to us. Who
Mm-hmm.
else did you work with in the organization? So like
Mm-hmm.
really getting granular about answers to those questions, because then now that really creates a new snapshot that is really about their capability and suitability and their experience doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
and an insight into how they do the work for you versus getting caught up on the assumptions that you make based on the logos or the tenure or the title, right? And
Yeah.
and shifting that conversation to, can you do the work? Are you uniquely positioned to do the work? And are you the type of person that we want as part of our
Yes.
organization?
You can discern these things from like questions like you said, like who, like what, talk about a project, talk about the outcome, talk about what, like the gaps, what happened. Like if you're able to really frame that, what are the skills as well that you brought to this like project or this role, right? And then actually mapping that to what you need internally, right? So it's actually like it makes like the most sense. I actually agree with the style as well. And that that bias of the pedigree bias, it's like one of the biggest ones right now, right? Like you get
Yeah.
dazzled by those logos, and like the
Gosh.
CV is like really upholding that, that big
It is
bias.
my biggest pet peeve. So I've been an advisor to founding teams for such a long time now. And, someone will be like, oh, but this person worked at Google. And I'm like, yeah, but they worked at Google once Google was already Google,
Yeah.
right? Like they had big budgets, they had resources, they had a big name that could attract candidates. Oh, by the way, they had big budgets, so they can also pay.
Yeah.
You're a scrappy startup, right? You need someone who is resilient, who has zero, who has experience with zero budget, trying to, tape things together. You
Mm-hmm.
need someone who is resourceful, who isn't going to rely on a process because you need this person to actually create the process for you, etc. So you're looking in the wrong place, right? Like this
Absolutely.
isn't the match. Maybe if this was the first hire at Google 20 years ago, yeah, maybe that person, but it's not this person, more or less, right? Like,
Absolutely.
so that logo obsession drives me crazy.
Oh, I've seen this. I've seen it
Yeah.
big time too.
Yeah.
And like it is like something like, again, like we're talking about those biases, is like we know this exists but we still do it. We all do it. We all actively do it. And it's like it's like a confirmation bias as well. Like, oh, they went to the same university as me, therefore they're going to be just as good as me. I like them, they live in the same city. Oh, I came from that small town, they did too. Like, there's just a myriad of things that we do. And by opting towards like what you're suggesting with better screening, with picking up better signals early on, and then being able to see them, like walk them through actual thinking exercises, I just feel like this is a better process than something so antiquated like
Yeah.
the resume.
Yeah. And we've done the other thing for so long, and then we shrug our shoulders when, like, when you look at different recruiting stats, it's usually 50-50, right? Like in
Yeah.
terms of successful hires.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, like, where do you have stats like that where you would be happy with that in your organization? Like, we have 50-50 of getting this
No.
sale. We have 50-50 of this marketing campaign working, right? Like, you wouldn't do that, right? You'd invest time and energy and thoughtfulness in terms of taking another look at the process and
Yes.
seeing if there are pieces you would change, right? We don't do that in this circumstance. Like, this is something that hasn't been touched in such a long time. And we kind of tinker around around the edges. Like, deaf people have tried to be thoughtful, like, oh, let's introduce a case, or let's get them to code something. Or you'll see it in some applications in terms of the question, like having an actual questionnaire. So there's some tinkering around the edges,
Yeah.
but I won't lie. I kind of long for the day, or maybe going back to zero again and kind of going, what if we just took it
Yeah.
all out? What if we just took it all out and started from day one again and started to reimagine it as we think it should be built and build it that way?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. That, like, you're so right. In any other business function in a company, stats like that would not fly. You
No.
would like burn it to the ground. But why do we accept it? I don't know. It's very interesting. We kind of already talked about security and increasing confidence in hiring. So that's typically what I've been asking this season. But I want to know, like, what type of tools are you using for your process right now? Are, like you mentioned, tofu. Are there other things that you're seeing out there that you love for your hiring stack?
Yeah, I think one of the most important trends that we have found on our end and that we've kind of leaned into is the companies that help us sort through the noise in terms of the absolute volume that we get. So
Yes.
every time we post a role, like we get like 800, resumes for
Oh,
each role. And like, how is a recruiter in any meaningful way able to sort of go through all of those? Like, you would love to be very thoughtful and go through each one line by line and how you think about that process. And so, for us to use AI tools, some of them in-house developed and some others, third party like Talently or whatever others might exist out there where you can they'll sort through the noise, right? Like they
yes.
will do the AI sort, which of course,
Mm-hmm.
reminder to everybody out there that you need to disclose if you're using that in your process Ontario now by law, but where that could help us sort a little bit through that first tranche to make sure that we are effective and efficient in our time in terms of where we're spending it. And so that has been impactful.
Huge.
Yeah.
I think it was Justin Krulicki from Myovision. He was on, I'm not sure if you know him in the community as well, but he was on the podcast and he's like, I got 5,000 applicants for one job once, 5,000. The
Oh
sheer
yeah.
amount. What?
Yeah, it's crazy. And sometimes you kind of go like, "Oh God, I would love to read every single last one of them." But like it's not even possible, right? And so you have to figure out a way to use your time in a way that concentrates on the higher value conversations or what you believe are the higher value conversations. So having tools that help you do that in a thoughtful way,
Yes.
in a meaningful way, is important.
Agreed. Well, Jenny, thank you so much. This has been a lovely episode. I've loved your thoughts and very, very fresh takes. And I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing that with the world.
Well, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed our conversations.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just love the way that you're thinking about like, hey, like let's challenge some of these. Like let's have real conversations and challenge some of these, first principles concepts, right? If we could do this differently, what could it really look like? Cuz let's stop tinkering around the edges. Let's actually try to do something that doesn't just move the needle forward, but like jumps the needle forward.
Yes, yes. Beautiful mic drop ending. Thank you so much, Jenny. Take
Such a
care.
pleasure.
Thanks for joining me on Looks Good on Paper, powered by Willow. If today's 3-question sprint gave you something new to think about, hit subscribe and share with your network, because in hiring, and really in life, it's never just about what looks good on paper.